Hi there, Facebook. I'm not going to duck this one. It was a debacle. It was a nightmare. It was a stomach turner. But it was predictable. I'm not looking forward to Undisputed tomorrow on Fox Sports 1 at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time until noon Eastern Time. Starts at 6:30 here Pacific Time. I'm not looking forward to getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get ready for our 6:30 a.m. kickoff. I'm not looking forward to sitting across from Shannon Sharp, cowboy hater extraordinaire, at 6:30 a.m. in the morning Pacific Time, 9:30 Eastern. But I'll be there. And I'll be there because none of this surprised me. If I had predicted that Dallas would somehow upset Philadelphia, I would be devastated. I did not predict that. I said it would be 32-20, and it was even worse than that. Others on Undisputed, starting with Shannon Sharp, said it would be a very close game, knockdown, drag-out division battle. I did not. It was a mismatch. Basically, from the start, the Cowboy defense hung in for a half. Cowboys controlled the ball enough for a half that they hung in and led 9-7 for a half. But I tweeted at halftime, and I said Thursday, we didn't have a Friday show on Undisputed. We were dark on Friday, but I said on Undisputed, I said before the game on Facebook, it will be close for a half. And it was. I didn't know if it'd be 9-7 Dallas or 9-7 Philadelphia, but it was 9-7 Dallas, in large part because Carson Wentz, once in a lifetime, was 0 for 6 on third down in the first half, which is a pretty extraordinary stat for the Dallas Cowboys defense without Sean Lee. But right on schedule, same song, fourth verse. What happened? It's the same thing that happened in the second half against the LA Rams at Jerry World. It's the same thing that happened in the second half versus Aaron Rodgers and the Packers at Jerry World. It's the same thing that happened against the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Ryan and company at their new place. Same thing that happened in the second half with no Sean Lee in any of those three games happened again tonight. All those long runs, Sean Lee's sticking his nose right in the middle of them. The Ajayi long run, it's just not going to happen with Sean Lee. I'm sorry, Aaron Jones wouldn't have run wild on the Dallas defense in the second half as he did for Green Bay in that second of the four losses without Sean Lee. It just wouldn't happen. I'm sorry, they're interviewing Pennsylvania. And I think, not sure who the other interviewer is, but interviewee is. But anyway, I'm going to preempt this because he played great in the second half, but did his receivers not make some great catches for him? And I'm sorry, I'm looking at him right in the face. He's a good kid from North Dakota State, but he ain't no MVP to me. Tom Brady should be running away with the MVP. That was candy from babies in the Dallas secondary. They're starting 2 rookies tonight and a second-year player in Anthony Brown. And if Anthony Brown just stays on his feet long enough to catch the horrendously thrown, it was actually, he got his arm hit, he got hit as he threw it, but at the end of the half, Anthony Brown might have just picked six that ball, and then, might have been a little more interesting in the second half because there had been more pressure on Pennsylvania. What would that have made it? If he scores, it would have been 16-7 at half. I don't know. Could they have hung on? Probably not, because they couldn't hang on 24-13 over the Rams in the first half. They couldn't hang on 21-6 over the Packers in the first half. And they couldn't hang on a close game at Atlanta. I can't remember exactly. Was it 10-7 at half? But they had a chance in that game. And obviously, the defense played well for a half, but it just can't hang in and hang on, which brings me to Dak Prescott. My guy, Dak Prescott, was terrible tonight. That was by far his worst professional game. So now he's played basically a year and a half's worth of football and hadn't played a bad game. Hadn't played one till tonight. That was pretty awful. He's starting to get a little gun shy because he is running for his life on nearly every play. He was getting it from both sides tonight. Lyle Collins had some problems blocking from the right tackle spot, and obviously Byron Bell, they tried to give him as much help as they could with various tight ends, Jason Witten, lining up Hannon over there. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, and Dak is just under fire, and he's getting desperate, and he's trying to show the world that he's not going to get exposed without Ezekiel Elliott, and he was terrible. The first half interception that basically turned out to be a punt was just a desperate bad idea. But what gets more and more desperate for me, what drives me crazier and crazier is when in doubt, Dak goes to Dez Bryant. And Dez is just a shell of himself. He can't beat Ronald Darby. I'm sorry. It's just so painful to watch. He threw 14 balls to Dez Bryant tonight, and none of them had any impact on the game. They keep waiting for Dez to turn back into Dez, and he's just not. He's not that guy. I've been saying it for most of this year, if not part of last year. He was really good in the Green Bay playoff game once they fell behind, 21 to, what did it get to? I forget, 21-3. He was great. He's had a few moments this year, but I'm sorry, he's just not that guy anymore. And even if they just single him with Ronald Darby, you'd think in the good old days, he just makes play after play after play, and he just can't make one. The fade route, it was close to pass interference, but I don't know. I just thought Ronald Darby just played the route better. He sort of ran the route for Dez. And, you know, if you go to him 14 times and you have no impact, I'm sorry, it's just over. It's just, you got no chance. I love Bryce Butler. All he does is make plays. They threw him 2 balls tonight. He caught 2 balls tonight. He can get behind people. But are they going to replace Dez in the starting lineup with Bryce Butler? They're not. I wish they would play him more. It's just hard. You put him in for Terrence Williams. He had the big game against Kansas City. Quiet game tonight. I have no idea what's happened to Cole Beasley. They double him a lot inside. They take him out of the game inside. They won't let him go inside anymore. But it's just pathetic. So after a rough first half for Wentz in a lifetime, his receivers just came alive and played so big for him, just snatching pass after pass after pass. And I'm thinking, boy, I wish Dak had some of that. Somebody catch a ball. I saw 3 big drops. Dez had 2 balls that should have been caught. Terrence Williams had 1 that should have been caught. Got knocked into an interception. And then James Hanna, later in the game, it wouldn't have mattered, but he got hit right in the hands at the goal line. It just went right through his hands. I don't know. They've just lost confidence. Alfred Morris, you know, I've been a big fan of his since his days with RG3, those 3 years in Washington when he was just sensational. But I must admit, he looked a little old tonight. He doesn't quite have the burst to make it hurt, you know, to really sting you. He had a nice game. He got his yards slowly but surely, but they weren't key yards. They weren't big yards. I still wish Dak would run the read option a little bit more. He hurt them 1 time with the read option. But the play of the game, for me, if you hang in and make a play, the defense sort of got off to a fairly nice start and it got to be 3rd and 1 on that first series of the second half. And they're still obviously hanging in 9-7, up 9-7. And I got to give it to Doug Peterson. He called a great play, and Wentz executed it great. It's the old sneaky sort of weak side screen. It's not even a screen pass. It's just sneak the tight end out on the weak side, you know, fake a block, sneak him out, and you let the whole rush come right up into your face. And Wentz in a lifetime let everybody come. They were even blitzing Anthony Brown from the weak side. Everybody almost got to him, but at 6'5", 240, he looked over the rush and just flipped it to the far flat. And it's just, who was it? I forget. Was it Selleck? I think it was Selleck. There's just nobody home. And that changed the whole game. That flipped everything. And from that point on, it was just torrential rain inside Jerry's world. And it was green rain. But I'm going to say it again. Tyron Smith is a monster at left tackle, both pass blocking and especially he's the cornerstone and the driving force of the run game. And if you take him out, They can't run. I still say they miss him more than they miss Zeke, and they obviously miss Zeke. They horrendously miss Sean Lee on defense. Is that Jerry's fault as the GM of the team? I don't know. It's like, what are you doing? Are you really, like, you think you have a shot to get to the Super Bowl this year, but you add no veteran leadership in the secondary and say it's Sean Lee or bust, right? And he's been an injury-prone player. This is unbelievable because it's a hamstring. It's not like a concussion because he blows himself up. It's not some broken bone or blown up knee. It's a hamstring pull and then a groin pull of Tyron Smith. And now you've lost two cornerstone players, not to mention Ezekiel Elliott. And all of a sudden, and you missed Dan Bailey, your kicker, who hurt you in the loss of him at Atlanta. They lost their kicker, Philly, tonight. And they just, by that point, the skies had opened, the roof had fallen in on the Cowboys, and it didn't even matter. I must say, in the second half, the Cowboy defense was just flat out pathetic. Dak was pretty pathetic, and the defense was very pathetic in the second half because they just wouldn't tackle anybody. After a while, I think they just lose heart, spirit. We've seen the same song. I said it all week. I congratulated the Eagles all week on Undisputed because that's it. It's over. The injury gods decreed it. The suspension gods of the National Football League decreed it. Fly, Eagles, fly. It's over. It's over. It was over last week because they're coming off a bye. They're healthy. They lost Jason Peters, their left tackle. He's getting up there in age. But they were perfectly positioned with Big V to move from the right side where he sat in for, obviously, stood in for Lane Johnson from the University of Oklahoma all last year for 10 games. And he just shifted right over to the left side. And I thought they just stoned the Cowboy pass rush. I don't know. Just young players, DeMarcus Lawrence, David Irving, Taco Charlton. Did you see much? I saw one big play. They blew up Wentz at the end of the half, and Anthony Brown couldn't come up with the ball. That's the story of the year. You have to come up with the football. You have to make the plays. So I've lost track of the interceptions. And was it 5 turnovers for Dak? Horrendous. Was it 5? I think it was 4. I'll have to go look. But I know it's 1 lost fumble, and did it get to 4 interceptions? 3 or 4. But the point is, they had all those turnovers, and Philly doesn't have any turnovers. So what do you think is going to happen? That's going to happen. And again, I said 32-20, and it even got worse because it always gets worse in the second half because the defense just loses heart and hope and loses its way after a while. It looks completely disorganized. It looks like helter-skelter without Sean Lee to line people up. He's the quarterback. He's the conscience. He's the gatekeeper of the defense. And you take him out. Again, they're way too dependent on that one guy, but he is the most underrated player in the National Football League on defense, especially with what he means to that team. So tonight, for me, was just predictable. Now they spin into a game against a really good Chargers team that I like to win the AFC West before the year started, and their kicker, whom they cut, cost them the first 2 games, or they'd be leading, they'd at least be tied for the lead, right, with the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. So here they come off a big game against, albeit a rookie starting quarterback, which was horrendous, but it's possible they're going to make Dak look as horrendous because they can flat out rush the passer. It's the best defense in the AFC West, and when Phillip Rivers gets cooking on offense, he can just pick you to pieces. If he gets your number and gets you on your heels, here they come on Thursday, and I don't love it. I don't love it. It just feels like a lost season. I loved this team going into the season, and I'm going to say it one more time, and a lot of times tomorrow on Undisputed. If the Dallas Cowboys had been fully healthy tonight, if they'd been the same team that they had on the field for the Kansas City game, they would have won this game tonight. You know it, and I know it. They were on a roll. They had launched right on schedule. It was a beautiful thing to watch. Those games, the San Francisco game was the start of it. And here they came, and they would have run right over the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. They had it going, and they would have had their number just the way they had it last year at Jerry World, even though it took overtime. Dak was great in that game against pretty much the same defense, most of the same defensive players. They didn't have Darby. Darby's good. Any physical corner just owns Dez Bryant. I can just go right down in order. Janoris Jenkins, and then you know the rest of the story. I don't know. I still love this team. I loved his chances before the year. I thought Ezekiel Elliott would still be eligible. I'm still raw and angry about how that was handled. But in the end, it's over. Way to go, Philly. Ring that Liberty Bell. Schedule that parade. This year belongs to you. Congratulations. Fly, Eagles, fly. I will see all of you tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern. Undisputed. Fox Sports 1. You better believe it, Shannon Sharp. I'll be there, and I'm coming for you. Good night, Facebook.